Well, for those of you who don't know, I am indeed guilty as charged, human rights attorney. And, you know, we're all being banned faster than you can shake a stick at it. So if you want to find me, you can go to leighdundas.com. Can you hit the slide for me? That's Leigh, L-E-I-G-H, because my mother had to give me extra letters, Dundas, D-U-N-D-A-S.com. So what I want to talk to you about indeed tonight is the rise of freedom over the Fourth Reich. And as the gentleman before me said, freedom is not something you buy, it is something you earn every minute of the day, especially this year. Okay, especially this year, because we have a lot going on. And if you don't know what it's like to live in a blue state or a blue town, let me tell you. This week in Orange County, California, the cattle cars of yesteryear, the cattle cars of Auschwitz came rolling into my town wanting my child to get on board. And that is not acceptable. That is completely unacceptable in any place, but especially where I live. So if you don't know what happened in Orange County, about 10 days ago, the Orange County health officer, a little guy by the name of Dr. Clayton Chow, got together with the superintendent of schools in our county, and they hatched a little plan. And they decided in their wisdom that they were going to take our taxpayer-funded schools and turn them in to COVID vaccination centers so they could deploy an experimental medical protocol that killed every ferret in the last animal trial that was done. Worse, they decided they were going to see if they could find a way to legally sidestep parental informed consent so that little Johnny could get bribed with a donut after recess at kindergarten and go walking back to the nurse's office and roll his sleeve up and get this experimental protocol without his parents ever being the wiser. So I don't know how you feel about that, but I know exactly how I felt about that. And we only had about 24 hours notice, but we got 200 or 300 of my closest friends to come down to the next board meeting the next night, and we let them know exactly how we felt. Roll the video.
Leigh Dundas, human rights attorney. Late last week, I am informed a meeting occurred between Orange County Health Officer Dr. Clayton Chow and Orange County Board of Education Superintendent Al Mahars, during which time they apparently tried to find a way to, quote, sidestep and entirely remove informed parental consent for the COVID vaccine and also turn Orange County school campuses into vaccination centers. The COVID-19 vaccine is an experimental medical protocol authorized under the Emergency Use Authorization Act, and as such, you cannot mandate it for anyone, nor can you sidestep informed consent. There is a reason that kids cannot smoke, drive, drink, have sex, vote, or die for this country, and it is because the law says they lack the capacity to understand those decisions, and that applies here more than ever. Hear me loud and hear me well. We will not be morphing our school campuses into COVID vaccine centers for delivery of an experimental medical protocol that killed every ferret in the last animal study they did until such time they had to abandon that study, and then they didn't even do the study this time around because we are the study. The last time humans launched a plan like this to conduct experimental medical protocols on vulnerable populations was in Joseph Mengele's direction. He was an MD known as the Angel of Death. Okay, and he was part of the SS, and in 1943 he was assigned to Auschwitz, where he saw an opportunity to conduct gene research, quote, focused primarily on children with no regard for the health or safety of the victims. This is off the internet, you can Google it. You know what else is gene research? Experimental COVID vaccines with the trans gene inside of it. If you don't believe me, go pull the EUA application for the J&J shot. I come from a long line of Eastern Europeans, Hungarians, and Romanian groups that fled the persecution of the Red Terror communist death squads in the early 1900s, and those of us who didn't make it to America ended up facing the Nazi death squads in the lesser-known Holocaust that was the Romani Holocaust. There is a reason my daughter is named Katya. Her Romani great-grandmother was Katerina Choma, and I, for one, have not forgotten the lessons of our history. The Third Reich did not end with experiments on children, nor when those children died. The Third Reich ended in 1946, when we put the doctors who committed these human experiments on trial in Nuremberg, and then we put them to death. It ended with the adoption of the Nuremberg Code, so we would never repeat the sins of history. And it states, and I quote, "The voluntary consent of this human subject is absolutely essential." Dr. Chow and Dr. Maharish, you are hereby on notice. Last week, you appear to have knowingly hatched a plan to sidestep and or violate international, federal, and state law, not just the Nuremberg informed consent language, but also the black letter law of the EUA, as well as California state law, which punishes, and I quote, the willful failure to obtain a subject's informed consent by imprisonment in county jail for 1 year or the imposition of a $50,000 fine or both. Through the planned insertion of experimental gene-altering protocols onto the very children you were elected and charged with protecting. And tonight we are asking the Board of Education for an immediate letter of censure to these individuals. And if they don't resign, for an immediate notice of termination. And that letter also needs to go to the professional boards because they have no business being in these positions. So help me God, the people of Orange County will hold this policy to account.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. You know, us lawyers can get pretty passionate, but when they come for your kid, it adds a little something extra, I think. So you might be surprised to hear this, but Orange County decided they were going to walk that little plan back after we hit them like that. All right, so then I thought I was going to get a day off, but I didn't, because the next day I woke up in Chapman University, which is a little religious college right down the road from where I live. They decided they were going to withhold the graduate degrees of their MBA class unless those MBA students rolled over and got this experimental COVID protocol. And they went one step further. They engaged what I contend was hate speech, or darn close to it. They bullied, they coerced, they harassed their students, and they called any of their students who would refuse to get this shot a procrastinator for whom no special accommodations would be made, and that procrastinator could sit out that semester, thereby never graduate, and it would be on their dime. So I don't know if you know about us lawyers, but we like to talk, and we also like to type. So Chapman University got a little love letter a couple days later, all 15 pages. And the same day they got that letter, they rolled it back. So then, thank you. So then I was really kind of hoping for a day off at this point, but who are we kidding? Everybody on this stage has worked 365 days in a row, probably about 18 hours a day. And the next day I woke up to find that the Board of Supervisors was going to release an electronic digital COVID-19 passport system into our county. Yeah, that's what they decided they were going to do. But their health officer had gone on to TV, KTLA Live, Channel 5 the day before, and said, you know, people seem to have a little problem with that term. It's a little bit, quote, controversial. So we're going to change the name so people don't know what the heck is going on. So that way, the rhinos on our Republican board, when concerned citizens call up and say, are you voting on a digital passport for COVID-19 inoculations, the secretary can go, nope, we're not. Nope, we're not doing that. And then the second thing they did, and this was really laughable, we're standing, some of the people up here on the stage with me, we're standing at the Board of Supervisors meeting. We're waiting for our turn to talk, and the one lady on the Board of Supervisors meeting has the audacity to say, this is not a policy of exclusion. Well, then she was speaking with forked tongue, because in the next sentence, she says the whole reason they want to do this is to open the county back up so they can all start going to Trader Joe's and Disneyland and sporting events again. So all of us people with a brain and a pulse are standing in line going blink, 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 blink. And I'm thinking quietly to myself, well, you know, I'm sure Hitler didn't think there were very exclusive policies either. And they weren't, so long as you were German. So long as you were German. But the real creme de la creme, cherry on top, was when our board decided they were going to pass the buck. They said, we aren't doing a digital vaccination passport system. We're just making the technology available so the stores can do it. I don't know how your year of masking and fighting the masks has gone, but I think we can all extrapolate from this point forward how it's going to go based on the little mask experiment. So I looked at that board and I thought to myself, you know, you can lipstick this pig 8 ways to Sunday. You can change the dang name 55 times. You can bury this in agenda item 28 and footnote 4 that's on page 88 of that. And we are still going to know that that pig is a lipstick pig. And so we stood up and we gave it to him again. Roll tape.
Leigh Dundas, human rights attorney. Let me be nothing if not clear. You can call this anything you want, a vaccination verification system, a composite app, ink contract for $3.8 million buried in item 28. We all know it when we see it. It is a digital vaccine passport, and there's a reason Clayton Chau shied away from it on camera the other night and said people think it's controversial. Yes, it's controversial. It is the beginning and the end of Nazi Germany. It is show me your papers, please, before you pass. It is an electronic dog collar. And since when did Orange County become the People's Republic of China? You won't need Warsaw ghettos. I won't be able to leave my house because nobody will service me. Are you really okay with big tech knowing every place you've been, from Chipotle to the post office to Disneyland, because you had to scan it every single time you left your house? And do not for a second try to absolve yourselves, saying, oh, the marketplace is going to do it. It's on Costco. It's on Disneyland. We're not doing it. That's like the guy who drove the cattle car to Auschwitz saying, there's no blood on my hands. Unlike you all call it what it is. This is a Nazi plan, and you are the Fourth Reich if you vote for it.
Make no mistake, this is a second Holocaust, my friends. Hitler did not start by burning people in ovens. That is where he ended. Hitler started, and you can Google it, the first thing he did to consolidate his power is he closed non-essential businesses, as did Governor Newsom in my state. Second thing he did is he closed the churches and the schools because they are the heart of the family, and that is exactly what Newsom has done. And the fourth thing he did is he marked the people he didn't like so he could segregate them and discriminate against them and do worse. And this week in Orange County, California, that little cattle car came to our town. And Hitler started by changing 400 laws in the first 6 years of his reign of power. And my governor changed 400 laws in the first 6 months. The only darn difference between Hitler and Newsom, for the haters who think that it's not okay to analogize to Nazi Germany or that it's not warranted, there is only one difference between Hitler and Newsom, and that is that Newsom has done it 12 times faster than Hitler. So then I get off the plane in Tulsa, and I turn on my phone, which I'm beginning to think is a bit of a mistake this week, and I see LAPD, some of our finest men in blue, and don't get me wrong, I back the blue, I work with them, I do human trafficking work like the gentleman two before me. I love our cops. You couldn't pay me to do their job. But I saw a travesty. I saw LAPD muscling young, mentally challenged, mentally handicapped children to the ground and against their will while they are screaming, I don't want it, I don't want it, jabbing them with an experimental medical protocol that they can't get through the animal studies without killing every animal. This is a eugenics program. That is the word for it. And California is falling. And I never ask for help. I never ask for help. And I am asking everybody within earshot in this room and elsewhere for help tonight. This is my SOS, because if we don't hold the line in Orange County, California, there's a darn good reason they targeted us. They knew if they could take that hill, they could take any hill. If we don't hold the line here, this little dog and pony show is coming to your town soon. We need to hold the line. I'm running a little bit behind. I'm going to try to talk fast. I wasn't expecting all the clapping. I want to end with two stories. One, my secretary, when I started doing the work, the human trafficking work in Thailand, was a girl who had herself been sex trafficked. And she told me the story one day when we were standing in her office. She said, you know, I was 12 years old, 13, something like that. I was sitting on a bus bench on a rural road in Thailand. And a group of guys came by and they muscled me to the ground. They shoved a needle in my arm, and when I woke up, I was in a slave trading camp on the Thai-Burmese border. And one day the guards in that camp got bored, and they decided they were going to have some sport. And they lined us all up from end to end, and they went girl to girl laying guns on temples. And every girl, when they got to her, would drop to her knees and grapple for the gun to no avail. And she stopped talking when she got to this point of the story, and I looked at her and I said, "What did you do when the guard got to you?" And she looked at me and she took a step forward and she said, "I stood up. I stood up and I held out my hand and I said, 'Give me your gun. I will shoot myself because I don't want to live like this anymore.'" And the owner of the camp overheard that. He was walking by, he overheard it, and he let her go free. And I learned a lesson that day that I have never forgotten since, and it's a lesson we need to hear every hour this year, and that is this. When you are looking at a locked and loaded double barrel full of hate and anger and tyranny and upset that is ready to do you in, you stand up. You stand up, because you are better off on your feet fighting for your life than ever taking a knee. Than ever taking a knee. You don't bow down to tyranny, not ever. I'm going to tell you how this story ends. We're going to win. And I know we're going to win because the fact that I am looking at you and you're looking at me tells me everything I need to know, which is every single time this planet has flirted with tyranny, we have pulled back from the brink and we have lifted up stronger and better and more free than ever before. I come from military. I come from a long line of military. My husband's U.S. Army, my dad was U.S. Navy, and my grandfather was also U.S. Navy. And that man, bless his heart, had not one, not two, but 3 separate ships bombed out from under him, starting on December 7th, 1941, as he was standing on the decks of the USS West Virginia in the Pearl Harbor waters of Hawaii. And in my house, we grew up saying, "Yes, sir. No, ma'am." We bowed our heads in church and we flew our flag high. Okay? And here is why. If you are within the sound of my voice, you are an heir to freedom. You are the sons and daughters of the men who stormed the beaches at Normandy. We are the sons and daughters of the GIs who came into hot landing zones in Vietnam, into the jungles with their whirlybirds blazing smoke, because by golly, they were not going to leave a man down behind. We are the rightful heirs to the kingdom of freedom, and we are never going to let it be sold out. Not on your watch, not on my watch, not ever. God bless America, and God bless all of you.